It is a big one today, folks. One of those forecasts where I can feel the energy buzzing in the atmosphere. We've got storms brewing, heat building, and a rare meteorological dance playing out right off the coast of Florida that you almost never see. This isn't your everyday update. This is the kind of setup that makes me lean forward in my chair because I know something unusual, maybe even historic, is about to unfold. Right now, the tropics are alive. We've got Alda sitting just off the Florida coast, trying its best to crank up into hurricane status. At first glance, you might look at it on satellite and shrug. It doesn't look like much, just a messy swirl of clouds fighting through dry air. But let me tell you, storms like this can surprise you. By later today, as conditions shift and as Umberto continues lifting north, Alda is expected to finally find its stride and strengthen. And here's where it gets wild. Alda isn't alone out there. Just to the east sits Umberto, its storm partner. Or should I say, its storm rival. These two systems are caught in this rare, almost hypnotic dance we call the Fujiwara effect. It's when storms get close enough that they actually start orbiting around each other, pulling and tugging like two magnets that can't decide whether to collide or drift apart. It almost looks like they're flirting out there in the Atlantic. And right now, they're closer than I've seen in a long time. Now let me break this down. Umberto is hauling north, brushing close enough to Bermuda that its outflow is already sweeping over the island. Some of that upper-level moisture is actually stretching so far north it's touched places like Ohio, New York, even New England. If you've noticed gray skies along the East Coast or passing showers in the Carolinas, believe it or not, that's Alda's footprint reaching hundreds of miles from its center. That's how powerful and sprawling these systems can be. But here's where I want you to lock in, because this is the closest point. These two storms are going to get you before they break up. Umberto speeds off to the northeast, while Alda is left wandering in the western Atlantic. That separation means Bermuda could be staring down a direct hit by late Wednesday into Thursday. I'm talking hurricane-force winds, storm surge, flooding rains, the whole deal. If you've got ties to Bermuda, this is the time to prepare. And yet, there's another possibility. One that has every meteorologist, myself included, glued to the model runs. If Alda clings too closely to Umberto, we could see them almost merge into a single, massive system. The Fujiwara effect has pulled off surprises like this before. I think back to last year with Helen, when two separate lows merged into a single catastrophic system. That's the kind of rare scenario we're flirting with right now. Now the good news, for the US mainland at least, is that neither Alda nor Umberto seem likely to make a direct run at our coastline. Aside from some passing showers in Florida, the Carolinas and Virginia from Alda's outflow, we're spared the brunt of this storm drama. But Bermuda? They could be center stage in this tropical showdown. That's not the only storyline, though. As we move into the weekend, I'm also watching the Gulf. There's a pocket of energy down there, the kind of convection that sometimes tries to spin itself into a weak tropical system. Odds are low, but not zero. Models even hint at a small low-pressure center forming near Louisiana by Sunday. Even if it's weak, it could bring localized flooding and some headaches along the Gulf Coast. And while that's happening, the rest of the country has its own challenges. A strong system rolling out of the Rockies could kick up gusty winds across the plains and Midwest this weekend. Add to that, a sprawling ridge of high pressure that's going to torch much of the central US with unseasonable heat. I'm talking 80s, even 90s, across the Dakotas, Minnesota, Michigan, Indiana. Heat levels you just don't expect this deep into the calendar. Meanwhile, the Northeast catches a taste of fall, with highs dipping into the 50s and low 60s. A beautiful, crisp break for them, but a jarring contrast to the heat wave gripping the middle of the country. Now, before I get into the thick of Alda and Umberto, I've got to set the stage. Because what's happening out in the Atlantic isn't just about today. We're entering a stretch where the tropics are alive, restless, and ready to keep producing storm after storm. I'm watching waves of energy rolling off Africa, and a few of them look like they're just waiting for the right moment to explode into something bigger. And then there's the Gulf of Mexico. You know how I always say the Gulf is a cauldron this time of year? Well, it's bubbling right now. Water temperatures are off the charts, and that means even a small spark could ignite into a tropical system within days. So, yes, we've got a lot to talk about. This isn't one of those forecasts where I only have a single storm to track. This is a chessboard full of moving pieces. Alda, Umberto, the Caribbean waves, the Gulf. And the big question hanging over all of this: how long does this active streak last? My gut and the models are saying deep into October, and that means we're only just getting started. Let's dive into the big headline: Hurricane Alda. Right now, Alda is sitting just shy of hurricane strength, winds around 70 miles per hour. Give it 4 or 5 more, and boom, it's officially a hurricane. By tonight, watches in Bermuda will flip over to warnings, and by tomorrow night into early Thursday, that island will be facing a full-on hurricane. And we're not talking a glancing blow. This thing has the potential to bring sustained winds near 90 miles per hour, maybe higher, with gusts that could push into that 145-kilometer range. For a small island like Bermuda, that's a big deal. What makes this situation even more nerve-wracking is Umberto spinning nearby. Now, Umberto isn't lining up for a direct strike. Thank goodness for that. But it's close enough to stir up high seas, heavy bands of rain, and keep the environment unsettled. So if you're in Bermuda, you're not just bracing for one storm. You're dealing with Umberto's leftovers, and then you're staring down Alda's core. That's 2 storms combining forces, hammering the seas, raising tides, and eroding beaches before Alda even makes its closest pass. That's why I keep calling it a 1-2 punch. The timing is critical here. By tomorrow night, Wednesday night into very early Thursday, conditions in Bermuda could go downhill fast. Strong winds, sheets of rain, waves crashing. It won't last long. Alda is a fast mover. But sometimes that makes it worse. The core punches through quickly, but it does so with maximum force. That means less time to breathe, more time spent under intense, hurricane-force winds. And let me say this: Bermuda knows hurricanes. They're some of the best prepared people in the world for storms like this. They've built their infrastructure for it, they practice for it, and they live with the reality that storms can strike any year. But even with all that preparation, this is going to be a long couple of days. I know a lot of you watching right now are in Bermuda, or have family there. I see your comments every season, and I want you to know, I'll be tracking this storm, start to finish. You are not alone in this. Now, let's zoom out and talk about the bigger picture, because Alda and Umberto aren't the only players on the map. Out in the Atlantic, I'm watching a series of tropical waves. The first one isn't showing much in the way of organization, but the one trailing behind it, that one has my attention. The European model is giving it as much as a 50 to 60% chance of developing as it tracks towards the Caribbean next week. That's not just noise in the data. That's a legitimate signal. And when the Euro, the American GFS, the Canadian, and even the Icon model start agreeing on activity, I sit up straighter. But let's bring it closer to home. The Gulf of Mexico. This is where things get interesting. The American model, in particular, keeps trying to spin something up there as early as this weekend. And while I'm not ready to sound the alarms on a full-blown storm, the ingredients are undeniable. Warm water, lingering moisture, a favorable upper-level setup. That's the recipe. Even if nothing forms, that setup could still bring heavy rain across Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, and the Florida Panhandle. If you live along the Gulf Coast, don't take your eyes off the forecast. This is one of those quiet threats that can sneak up fast. Meanwhile, across the Caribbean, we're seeing scattered downpours. Guatemala, El Salvador, Central America getting the brunt of it. Flooding is on the table in those areas. Jamaica, Haiti. the Dominican Republic. Spotty rain, some heavy bursts. And again, all of this feeds back into the larger system, because when you have this much moisture and this much heat energy in the tropics, something usually gives. And I don't want to skip over the United States, because even if Alda stays offshore, its effects are already being felt. The Carolinas, Georgia, and Florida have been dealing with beach erosion and rough surf, and that's only going to continue. Rip currents are dangerous right now, and the onshore flow from these storms keeps hammering the coast. So even if you're hundreds of miles away from Alda's center, you're not out of the woods. For now, if you're in Bermuda, get ready. Tomorrow night could be rough. Make those final preps, stay safe, and know that all of us are watching with you. For the rest of us, buckle up. This hurricane season isn't slowing down.